Hey everybody, Ty here. Hope everyone's doing well. Hopefully you'll get to see this video. Last 3 days have been a little bit on the rough side in regards to putting out content, which has really sucked. But hopefully we can end that streak tonight. But as it stands right now, Saturday, it's been a little while since we've done a tropical outlook, and we'll go ahead and do one today here. As of right now, not really a whole lot to talk about here. 30% chance of development maybe over the next 7 days, but in the short term, nothing really to be worried about. We've kind of talked briefly about what the weather pattern is going to be like over the Atlantic, so it's not all that conducive for development. You look on satellite imagery, hardly anything there right now. Mostly just regular old clouds, maybe some thunderstorms over towards the Bahamas, but nothing that's concerning for any kind of tropical cyclone development at this time. One thing that I always keep in mind though during this time of year, because it's peak season anyway, is the Gulf of Mexico and really just the waters over the Atlantic in general. The Gulf of Mexico is the most notable feature here because that's where the waters are warmest. Just thankfully up to this point we haven't had anything tap into these waters. Otherwise we could see a situation like an Aaron kind of pop up, and that would be a nightmare scenario should that occur. But the way things are right now, nothing to really worry about. But do need to keep in mind that any storm that could form around this region could become a problem. So while we're almost there, we're still in peak season, but doing well right now. Don't let your guard down. As far as the pattern itself is concerned, we're going to have the GFS and European ensembles both up here. One thing that I'm going to make sure that I drive home in regards to our concerns here mainly is going to revolve around the wind shear. The wind shear, as of right now, due to the weather pattern we have over the lower 48, is going to be relatively unfavorable for development. We move both the GFS and the European ensembles here. You can see that for the most part, wind shear has been a big factor, and I would expect it to continue to be for at least a little while here. You can see things kind of glitching a little bit with the GFS ensemble here. But at least in the short term, wind shear is going to be relatively unfavorable. But as we get towards that first week of September, heading into the middle part of the month, I do expect business to start to pick up just a little bit, because the wind shear does begin to slack off at long last by the time we get towards maybe the middle part of the month. So it's at that point where I would expect things to maybe begin to ramp up again. Peak season usually lasts through the latter half of September, maybe into early October, depending on parameters here, of course. But at least in the short term, though, it does look like we're going to have a little bit of a break in the action. As far as steering is concerned, though, I don't see anything that would immediately drive anything into the lower 48. This ridge of high pressure is something that we're always going to be watching here. Usually whenever these storms start to grow bigger over the Atlantic, this high pressure usually will catch these storm systems themselves and throw them out to sea more often than not. That's what we've seen most of this year, and I would expect that trend to continue into the short term. Where we get into the long range here, I do notice that this high pressure area does kind of meander a little bit further out, and it also looks like it's kind of weakening just a little bit, or maybe waning a bit. Obviously, with it being in the long range, I don't have a lot of confidence in this, but the fact of the matter is, though, any sort of minute change here could make a huge difference as to what the final impact could be. So, again, another reason not to let your guard down. So let's go ahead, take a look at our dry air over these regions. And really, with the way the high pressure has been set up, especially with it being as close to North Africa as it's been, it's kind of helped keep things at bay as of late as well. That's why when we looked at satellite imagery, there wasn't really a whole lot to talk about. A lot of dry air has been impacting that main development region where we would look for development at this time of year. So I would expect that trend to continue for the most part as well. It does look like after we get past that first week, as I mentioned before, some low pressures do start to get back out there again. Dry air still looks like it tries to be a factor though as we get in towards the mid-month, so that could be the big wild card here in regards to our tropical potential down the line here. The moist air does look like it starts to come back into play based off of our model data here as we get towards the very end of the run. I do think with the way the dry air is set up over towards the eastern half of the US could also play a factor into this. So there's a lot of minute details that we're going to have to look at in regards to this as well here. Now, of course, we're going to look at our ensemble members, and what we're going to be paying the most attention to is just really seeing what kind of confidence we might have in development down the line here. Now, in the long range, of course, the less confidence we will have in the future, but it does look like, at least once we get towards that first week, both the GFS and the Euro have this idea or this thought that something does try to develop over here. It does look like, for the most part, that that's going to stay out to sea. So again, no immediate threats to the lower 48 or even over towards the Lesser Antilles right now. But we could have our next named storm maybe within the next couple of weeks here. We'll have to wait and see how things develop with that. But as far as any impacts to the lower 48, nothing to really be concerned with here. Low pressure area does kind of pop up over here intermittently, but I wouldn't expect much of anything out of that because there's too little time for it to develop right now. Don't get me wrong, those Gulf waters are warm, but you need also moist air and also light wind shear. So it's three pieces to the puzzle here, and if you're lacking one, it's a little bit harder to get any form of development as of right now. So last but not least here, we're going to go ahead and take a look at our blend of models here. So we're looking at multiple ensembles here, and from what I'm seeing, again, mainly during the 5th to the 8th time frame here is where we have a low pressure kind of develop here. Still unclear about the time frame and how things develop from that point, and there's a small chance that a low pressure area develops here, but mainly we're going to be looking at the MDR here for all our development going forward. It looks like nothing close to home really set in stone at this point as far as the Atlantic is concerned. Over towards the Pacific, it's been pretty active too, but I don't expect anything to make any sort of impacts over towards Mexico or the lower 48 at this point. So not going to make too much mention there, but I will be keeping an eye on that as well. That being said, appreciate you all being here. Appreciate your patience, especially with these last few days being as they've been. But I think I've come up with a solution, and I will have regular forecast videos up pretty soon. But we haven't really missed much because the weather's been rather quiet. But keep an eye out for the next upcoming cold blast. But till then, again, appreciate you all being here. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you next time.